So we'll make a start. I know there's more people going to be joining, but they'll probably just trickle in. So welcome everybody to today's webinar. My name is Matt Alawalia from Ashden. It's a really pleasure to see you all today. I'm also joined by my Ashden colleague, Alua Femi. If you want to give a quick wave, Femi.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks, Femi. Today is a really exciting webinar for anybody new to Ashden. We're a climate change charity. We were founded about 25 years ago to deliver a program called the Ashden Awards, which is an annual award ceremony that looks to highlight innovative climate action around the UK and the global south. But more recently, we've been working with councils, communities and schools to share best practice around climate action. And that brings us to where we are today. So today's a really, really exciting opportunity to listen from an amazing piece of climate action and an innovative initiative in itself, which is Greener and Cleaner Bromley. We're joined by Parisa White, who I'll introduce in a moment. But Greener and Cleaner Bromley is an amazing climate action sustainability hub and more, based in Southeast London, on the edge of London. And they've got so many incredible learnings of testing and piloting different routes into reaching communities around climate action and broader climate action co-benefits too. Before I introduced Parisa, I wanted to just kind of note some interesting stats that I saw the other day. And I think despite this kind of a growing political or media trend to kind of put down climate action and highlights anti-net zero as a kind of a growing popularism. Climate Outreach released some new data recently which showed some really, really incredible stats. So 4 out of 5 people believe being in nature makes them happy and want pride in their local environment, which can be delivered by recycling and tree planting. Nearly 90% of Brits support solar energy, and even more are really interested and supportive of the benefits that can be achieved from climate action, whether that's lower energy bills or green job opportunities, or even just reducing social isolation, which comes from getting together and meeting people. And many may have seen the deprivation metrics that the government released last week. It's really saddening to see how the kind of state of inequality in our neighbourhoods around the UK. And community climate action hubs are a really important mechanism that can bring people together in any community around the UK. And it's why this conversation is really, really important. So I'll hand over to Parisa Wright in a moment to hear more. So Parisa is the founder of Greener and Cleaner. She's going to talk about the amazing project and also opportunities for where you can get involved and learn more. And then we'll have some time for questions at the end. But if you have any questions throughout, you can pop it in the chat and we can, and Parisa will answer those as we go. But over to you, Parisa.
Okay, thank you so much, Matt and Femi. Thank you guys at Ashden for having us or having me. Hi, my name is Parisa Wright. And I'm going to be sharing a little bit about our case story. Hopefully it's a good news story, but hopefully it can share a few of the learnings that we've got on the ground, because I know that it doesn't matter if you're doing a school uniform exchange or a repair cafe or a climate cafe or a transition town, whatever you're doing, we have a lot of common challenges amongst us. And so I really believe in the power of cross-pollination, sharing learnings, and trying to help as many of us as possible do as much as possible, reach as many people as possible without burning out. So if you are happy, I'm going to go into my presentation, but what I would really love is that if you guys have questions or you want to sort of explore something a little bit more, please will you put it in the chat, and then either Femi or Matt will just sort of shout it out for me so that I don't keep sort of rolling on when actually we could have been having a bit more of a meaty discussion on something. So depending on how we go with questions, either we'll do the presentation, have questions at the end, or I think my preference is to make it very interactive and you guys interject when you want to raise something. Hopefully we'll have at least 5-10 minutes at the end for people to share their own experiences as well. But yes, anyway, so I'm going to talk about this, and I'm also going to talk about the opportunities that we have to follow up from this, some of which is fun. Well, it's all funded and really interesting, hopefully positive stuff, which has arisen out of our own lived experience of doing this work. Right, I'm going to share now and stop talking. Start talking. Okay. 1 second. So you'll have to bear with me while I do this because I am not, unfortunately, very technically savvy, but hopefully I can manage. Here we go. So if I go to from beginning, there we go. Can everyone see that?
Yep, absolutely.
Fantastic. Okay, right. So hello. So this is kind of what we're going to be talking about, this community hub and this model of a hub and spokes model, which is taking over a vacant unit, a vacant shop unit. This one's in a shopping centre, and having it open in the heart of the community 5 days a week, 1 day a week, but reliably run by the community for the community. This model is, the way we've taken this 360. We have about 12,000 visitors a year. We started on about 3 or 4 events a week. We're now up to 10, 15 events a week, about 8 of which are just regular things that kind of run themselves now, and the rest are sort of pop up and change. And it's very much about breaking down silos within our community in terms of different people dealing with a poly crisis. And it's very much about leaning into community needs and delivering it through the lens of sustainability to reach beyond the usual suspects. So here we are back in March 2019. The year before had been the school climate strikes, and I had been on mat leave with my baby and my 2-year-old, and I basically had this huge sense that it was the biggest human rights issue of our time. It was affecting our most sort of marginalized communities. My background is Iranian, but like whether you were a person of color, whether you were somebody who is dealing with deprivation and poverty, whether you were someone with health vulnerabilities, whether you were elderly, whether you were a child, you were disproportionately impacted in the UK. And quite frankly, I was just horrified that 5-year-olds and 2-year-olds were having to stand up and beg adults to take responsibility. And so to save myself from depression, I created an A to Z of recycling and donation because I thought that was very accessible, and ended up meeting lots of other people in my community. And together we set up Greener and Cleaner, and that's one of our first meetings above a pub in Shortlands. And from the very beginning, the one thing we said was there's too much talk and not enough action. That's why the children are out there. So from March 2019 onwards, we made sure that apart from our meeting above a pub where we talked about what was going on locally, what skills we had, what we were worried about, what we wanted to celebrate, what we wanted to press for, what projects we wanted to do together, we also talked about who's got a skill or two that they can share this month. So one month someone will be doing a free public event on composting. Someone else will be doing a sew-a-thon, turning net curtains into reusable veg bags. Another month someone would be doing how to darn socks or how to make reusable gift bags. And every month we did something, and we wanted to make it visible in the community. And that's what we did. So you can see there, that's an example of where we took over the back of a cafe. I think that was one of our sew-a-thons going on there. And you can see also some of the kids who were taking part in that climate protest, which is going to make me cry now. So I went back to work and got involved at work in sustainability on top of my day job, and I got together with other people in the South East London community to set up Greener and Cleaner, which started out being called something perhaps a little less accessible, but Greener and Cleaner was settled on as a name that we thought everyone, whatever their politics, whatever their belief systems, could get involved in, because everybody believes in the value of nature and reducing waste. They're two very accessible areas. So who are we? Oh, animation. So yes, so I've just sort of explained that really we wanted to normalize and clarify what sustainable living was, and help people understand that it was a regular thing, that it's something we all grew up with. You know, our parents didn't call sewing or composting sustainability, they called it life skills. And we wanted people to feel confident that they could meet and talk to other people locally, they could share skills with each other, they could work on community projects. Now we have a community hub that we set up, as you can see from the timeline there, in 2022, and we've been running for 2.5 years. And this year we got some funding to do what we've been wanting to do the whole time, to create a blueprinting package around this model of community hubs and their spokes, which are the pop-up events and projects and services out in the community. So yes, basically it's about building local sustainability and resilience while piloting this community hub model, which would leverage empty retail units and create an inclusive and 360 kind of hubs and spokes sort of style model, normalizing engagement for everybody, creating a holistic response to the interconnected crises of our time, the climate crisis, the biodiversity crisis, the cost of living crisis, the loneliness crisis, mental health, employment. It enables people to come together to create the projects, the services, the solutions they need and that they want to see. So building people power and resilience, but everything being delivered through the lens of sustainability. And with that kind of filter in a way, and making sure that things are, projects and services and events that are delivered are ethical and sustainable. It's fostering community, empowering people, and building skills locally, whether those are craft skills, life skills, sort of people handling skills, employability skills, but building a healthier, stronger community, one neighbour at a time. 360ness, it's 360 on sustainability. So from the very beginning, when we started off in 2019, we wanted everyone to feel it was a space for them. And back in 2018, as a mother, when I'd gone online, everything felt very siloed in terms of Facebook groups, in terms of charities. It felt like I had to have a separate conversation around air quality on one group, and then on active travel on another group, and then on net zero, or not net zero, zero waste on another group. And woe betide, I try and say, why don't we try and save fuel and waste less fuel by walking more those distances under a mile? And I put that on a zero waste group. I was told that that wasn't zero waste. And the interconnectivity between it all, or eat less meat, eat the amount of meat that NHS says is healthy to reduce your meat, but also improve your health and improve your emissions. That wasn't, so for me, everything was very interconnected on sustainability, and it meant that people could come to one space, and it meant that we would turn away fewer people. But obviously there's huge value for people who focus in on one area. And if you're focusing in on one area, but you can signpost other people, then brilliant. There's lots of different ways of doing it, but this is how we chose to focus on it. And then what we've learned over the last 3.5 years of running the community hub, what started off being called Community Sustainability Hub, now very much a community hub, was that in order to reach people, there were lots of different things that we had to do to get beyond the usual suspects. But certainly acknowledging that a lot of people's most immediate needs are around loneliness, mental health, physical health, employment, and cost of living was key. And we know that over 50% of people who've come into the hub and used the services and become regulars or used one-offs have been for those reasons. And they really value those benefits. And I think the climate outreach research was quite interesting, because that's some of those stats that Matt shared was really clearly focusing on the practical benefits day to day for people, rather than the words climate, sustainability, eco, green, planet, God forbid net zero, because that's been horribly toxified. And certainly when he said that people are keen on the real benefits of climate action, the benefits to cost of living, to community building, to loneliness, to social, to social impact, etc. That is what we found, is people really care about that. And a lot of our messaging is very much from that perspective. We still have art in activism, we still have come and talk about climate, but the majority of our work is trying to be as accessible as possible and highlight those day-to-day benefits and meet the needs as they come in. People need a space to have a men's, talking group. We can accommodate that, if, all that sort of stuff, that flexibility to flex with your community. So I'm going to quickly play a video. Hopefully you can hear. Tell us if not. Oh wait, let's just watch this video and then let's do some questions.
Coming to the hub. Just live among this. You can't be here.
I came into the hub for an energy efficiency clinic and I picked up a few tips. And now we're saving a bit of cash at home and also saving some energy, which is good.
So we have got 39 laptops that have been donated today. Lots of those, and bags and boxes on tables.
I heard about the hub through various mental health support groups. It's a wonderful place to come. It's probably the one thing that saves me from absolute despair in my life.
Since 2019, Greener and Cleaner has been going, but in 2022, we set up our pilot community hub here in the Glade Shopping Centre in Bromley.
And it's been open 5 days a week since then for the last 3.5 years. And well over 30,000 people have come through these doors. On top of that, we've been doing pop-up events out in hospitals, in universities, in schools, in parks, all over Southeast London. And these have been inspired by what people have said they want and they need and what they care about for their local environment, for their well-being, and building community resilience.
Greener and Cleaner did an energy-saving visit to you a few months ago.
Yeah.
And we advised you to switch your tariff to a fixed.
Yeah, which I did. I can phone John at any time of the day and he'll always help me.
I know and love what we do in here, and it gives me energy every time I come through the doors. It became very, very clear as soon as I got engaged with people in Greener and Cleaner that this was a community I could become a part of, that it would become something more than work.
Once you start looking for litter, it's very therapeutic, but it's great to do it as a social activity as well. I think there's a lot of people who want to get involved, who want to do more. Picking up litter like this is hope, because it looks like everyone else has given up. But actually, we need to bring power really back into the community. It is an uphill challenge. Well done. Good job.
I rented an SDS hammer drill from the Library of Things here at Glades and Bromley. It's easy to pick up and collect. I can just come to the kiosk here, tap a few buttons, and I've got my drill. And I've learned today about some of the other things the hub does, like the community sewing machine. I think it's really, really good that people can learn these things at little to no cost as well, and their skills for life that they can pass on.
Carol initially brought us the sewing box at the Beckenham Repair Cafe, and it's been such a joy to see it restored. And it just looks so lovely. And it's so nice to hear the history of it and know that we've restored something that's so loved.
Well, I think they've done it very well indeed. I'm very impressed with their skills.
I saw that there's a mending clinic, and the friends that are brought in today, we need to do some repairs on it. The staff, the volunteers, they're very, very helpful. It has helped me to learn some few things on how to do the things myself as well.
Another thing that we've grown over the past 12 months is our community allotment and garden, where we're teaching each other amazing food growing skills, where we're learning about creating habitats for local wildlife. And it's wonderful seeing all the generations and cultures coming together.
Oh, you're going to put your little pad in here? Oh, yeah! We've got that little.
We've also developed an amazing new offering for 18 to 25-year-olds called Connect the Buds.
It's quite hard meeting people in real life. It can be a space to come and learn a skill or do a workshop, have a cup of tea, learn something new. We don't have a lot of those kinds of places anymore. I think the vision for Greener and Cleaner is that every community across the UK should have access to a space that feels like it's owned by them and that is invested in the future of this planet and those communities that they're serving. We're trying to demonstrate through doing it in our space what's worked and what hasn't worked, so that other communities can set up. And the blueprint is our contribution. We've recently opened a support service for micro-sized businesses in the borough who want to be more ethical, more sustainable. We designed that because businesses were telling us that they couldn't get any help across South London. We're already networking with incredible groups on how do we do things together. Everybody has something that they can grab hold of and make a difference with. And if we are all doing that all of the time, we will get to where we actually need to be.
It makes my week. I look forward to it all the time.
Oh. Right. Sorry. Oh, this is not what I wanted. I'm going to work out how to escape. There we go. Oh, for goodness sakes. Hooray. I'm so sorry. At that point, did anyone have any questions? Because I know it's a lot and I speak fast. So I will try and slow down the speed of my speaking. But I don't know if there were any questions so far, because I can't see them in the chat. So someone else needs to shout them out.
Oh, yeah. I think there are some questions already popping in the chat. Do you want to take them now, or we wait till the end? Okay, yeah. I think there's one question about funding. Yeah. Say, did you get any funding? And also there has been questions about what role does the council have in supporting and enhancing this kind of impact and work. So I think we can just take those two at this moment. Funding
sure.
and the role of the local council. And this.
So there's two things. The council. So the reason we had to set this up was because we were in a very in an area where investment wasn't being made by the local authority in this area, and it felt to many of us that if we didn't set this up ourselves, nothing was going to happen. Post-pandemic, just before we set this up, there was, I think, £50,000 vacant unit grant available post-pandemic, which we applied for, which was funded by the government and I guess came through the councils. And also we liaised with we built up a good relationship with the carbon management team at the council, which then unfortunately disbanded in a way, but like at the time they were there, and they had like a carbon reduction fund, and so I think it was about 45,000 or something like that needed to be raised in order to put the Library of Things lockers into the community hub and to set up the website and to put in the equipment and everything. And so we did manage to get them to fund that element of it, which was great. And that Library of Things does bring in people who might not normally come in. In terms of funding, I guess there's two things. First of all, after sort of doing the community work for 2 or 3 years, we went out to COP26 in 2021 and presented on this idea of having this sort of mainstream space in the heart of the community that people could use for multiple purposes and would bring people on a journey from, let's say, the lighter weight or more accessible areas of sustainability or other areas into the sort of heavier impact, perhaps a bit more overwhelming areas like energy, transport, etc. And so we managed to secure some funding, some seed funding from Bayes at the time, which I guess is now DESNES in a way, from government, from people we met out at COP and having conversations and putting in a bid in order to get some seed funding to launch this. And when we got that seed funding, which basically covered the sort of first year and a half sort of costs, the idea was that this was going to be a pilot so that we could create a blueprint so other people could use it. And also the idea was that we were going to use this as a living lab to test different solutions to the challenges that our peers were telling us about. So we spoke to lots of people before we set this up, from transition towns to climate hubs to repair cafes to community allotment gardens to climate cafes to, you know, CECs to One Planet Living groups, all sorts of different groups. And many of the challenges were very similar. Two of the key challenges were basically like how to raise funding and how to diversify funding streams away from just going to the lottery or just the council. So that was one of the things that we've been working on in lots of different ways, and that is going to be our learning. Some of them are here, but a lot of them will be going into our blueprints package. And then the other thing was really diversity was a real issue, because a lot of these things were being set up by a small group of people who might represent one demographic, but because they're working so hard and they're firefighting and they're putting it on, they don't have the time or the resource to then go out and ask the rest of their community and other demographics and other people, particularly or marginalized climate vulnerable groups, what they need, what they want, what their blockers are, what would help them engage. And so that's been one of the things that we've been working on. There's loads of research out there, but actually in terms of what you can deliver, what are the practical, you know, like how do you do this, how do you do that, try it out, we've been doing that. So the idea was to use that seed funding to enable us to do something. Or from my perspective, the idea of that seed funding was to enable us not only to launch this, but to use it as a space that would then empower everyone else, not just to set up this kind of space, but to get the learnings that they could cherry pick and use to strengthen their own project, whatever that was. And so for funding wise, in the past and now, we've had funding from the lottery, the Reaching Communities grant we got last year for the first time. I think it was our 4th time of applying. But there are, and then also we've applied for other funds as well. And more recently, we've been supported by Esme Fairbairn, which is why we're having this webinar now to talk about how they're supporting us and how we can support others. So if it's okay, I'm going to go on, but I'm hoping I will touch on funding again. And if I don't, remind me and I'll come back to it, if that's all right. Yeah.
All right. I think just before we move on, Sona has her hand raised. Do you want to speak up now, Sona?
I think you might be on mute. I think it's okay. I think you're on mute, Sona, but I presume it's okay.
Okay. Well, anyway, shout out.
Sorry, I was just saying it's a great presentation. Carry on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, brill. So there are some slides mixed in here, which you will see like this one, which have come from the Civil Service Live presentation we did in July. Because one thing that this project represents is a collaboration between civil servants and a community group. The community group saying, this is what we've tested, this is what we know we need. Can you pilot it with us? And that government department going, okay, we can put this bit of money in because we can see how this could translate to helping other groups across the country or setting things up across the country. And so we came and spoke at Civil Service Live in July on 2 points. One, which was, as we all know, the most important way to spread the message on all the different elements of sustainability is through the trusted messengers and the trusted case studies, which are your neighbours. You know, there is low trust in government, etc. And so that, and then also just that opportunity to remind civil servants that they should be or could be collaborating with community groups to create the solutions that they see are needed, so that it is not designed for them, it's designed with them or by them. Cool. So you will see some of these slides mixed in for me to save time. I'm afraid I didn't recreate them, but I hope that's all right. So yes, borrow and lend, we do a lot of that. We've got that free sewing machine or two, which is being used daily as we're open. There was a 13-year-old boy who came in, he was a regular. We chose a unit that was next door to a McDonald's and opposite toilets to make it accessible. And as a result, even more people have come in. And the sewing machine is very popular. People can just come in, sit down. I asked him where he learned to sew, and he said he came to one of our free sewing classes and now he fixes everything himself. He even helped a guy who'd brought in a leather jacket, had been torn, and sewed it up for him. And then when the needle broke, he said, do you want me to fix the needle? Like, I was like, I don't even know how to fix the needle. And he did it. And the reason for that was he came in, he did a course for free. I think it was a couple of one-off classes. And now he's doing his own sewing and that for the community. It's incredible. There's the Library of Things. And then we've also got the party kits, like many of you guys will as well, that we lend out from the hub. We also lend out litter pickers. Sharing skills, it's all about intergenerational skills sharing, upskilling the community, overcoming loneliness, disabilities, isolation, and reducing waste together, and sharing a lot of those skills in community that is sort of gradually disappearing, unfortunately. Again, intergenerational and intercultural skills sharing. So you can see there's a lovely Japanese grandmother who shares her furoshiki skills with us every year. There's a lovely retired tailor, Malcolm, who shares his stories and his skills. There is Marjorie, who's celebrated her 93rd birthday with us this year, who is a constant font of knowledge. You know, there's so many amazing people sharing their skills. One of the things people value in this model, and I think it's probably something we all benefit from, you know, if you can provide something that is reliable and regular, people really value that. If they know that it's every week, or if they know it's once a month, if you can choose, if it's going to be once a month, if it can at least be the first or the last Friday, Saturday, Monday, whatever it is of the month, it helps them remember. But if you can do something once a week, even better. This is obviously 5 days a week, 10 till 6, but you could do a version of it that's 1 day a week or a month a week potentially. And then daily, there's things that people know. There's always advice. There's always a space to relax. There's always a space to socialize. There's always the books, the sewing machine, the Library of Things. And there's always some sort of basic coloring or crafting they can do without any help. Then weekly, there's always the energy clinic, mending clinic, baby toddler group, knit and stitch, young people's program, family crafting monthly. There's a tech reuse project. There are these things that are monthly, like film night, board game afternoon, hugely popular. And then annually, they know there's always going to be a seed swap in the spring. They know there's always going to be activities, especially around crafts, for more sustainable Easter, Halloween, Christmas fair. And then because it's hub and spokes, you've got the hub and then you've got the spokes, which are the pop-up events and projects and services out in the community. So out in the community weekly, we have a community allotment garden day. We've got monthly repair cafes and a newsletter. We've got Bromley Environment Network that we're part of, that we contribute to the newsletter there, and we chair that. And then annually we do things like the comedy night, Santa's sleigh ride collaboration, Wrap Up London, that sort of thing. That's the community allotment garden. And then, so the spokes of the community hub are the community allotment garden, which is all about biodiversity friendly food growing and habitat creation, really, but also is helping. We've got social prescribing, so people are being sent to us who are struggling with mental health, physical health. People are coming to us because they're feeling isolated and lonely. There's lots of reasons. Some people just want to get access to pick fruit and to grow vegetables because they don't have that outside space. Then also we do projects for schools, food banks, other local charities, resident associations, parks, and we provide energy advice, stalls. We do home visits, and all sorts of things like that. And then we have multiple repair cafes, which started off in our hub, are now in Beckenham, St Mary's Cray, West Wickham, and growing. Co-design is really important, and co-delivery. So this is all sort of run by and evolved by local people. And we've done collaborations on research to make sure that we can have as much impact as possible and ensure that we're listening to people and we can see what's working, what's not working. And you can see there some of that work. We've done community co-design, working with both individuals, but also working with specific charities or community groups representing more marginalised communities. We've done a range of different ways of addressing that. And then also feedback from hub visitors, library of things users, workshop attendees, and our volunteers and staff in the community hub itself as well has been really, really powerful. But also that's really added to the diversity of people who are both using the space and who are volunteering and working in the space. And yeah, I think people love knowing that it's somewhere from their local community that they can talk to. And arguably there is a real diverse range of people who now volunteer in our hub, which is wonderful. So people can find someone who looks like them, who has a similar background to them. And we highlight that we can tailor volunteering to help them with the issues that they are concerned with. For some of them, it is doing something on climate, but for some of them, it's getting back into work, it's mental health, it's loneliness. There's so many different reasons people volunteer. And then we are trying to get people on that journey to deal with their biggest emissions, which is energy. And this is a bit of a range of what we do on energy. So we have energy champions, but we also, by having the hub, people can come in for crochet or for nature or for cost of living reasons or for loneliness and be brought on a journey to then be comfortable engaging with this higher impact kind of area of energy. And for some of them, it might be that they just want to know what funding's available to them. Some of them might want their neighbour who's vulnerable to have a home visit with some advice. And some of them might just be like, oh, I like crochet and knitting. I'll get involved in that getting cozy scarf knitting session, and then we'll just have a chat with them about it. But there's all sorts of ways that people can engage with that. And there's a really interesting government campaign coming out soon, which is really simplifying what people can do into a few simple life hacks, which is real relief and pleasure to see government really leaning into sort of like making it a bit more accessible, basically, and practical. So that's the space again. As I said, there's low trust in both sustainability messaging, but also anything via government. So if we can do something to more effectively engage trusted messengers in this area and share our stories, we all know someone's saying to them, oh, my brother-in-law got solar and is saving money, or my sister-in-law has started cycling her kids to school, means that you're going to start thinking that's possible for you. So those local stories and local trusted messengers are really key. And so we all have an opportunity to make a massive difference. And social media is a huge problem at the moment because people are in these very toxic bubbles, where, as Matt said, you know, this area of life, which is basically a human rights issue, it's a non-political issue, you know, is being toxified, is being politicized, is being criticized. And people can't see the algorithms mean people think that everyone thinks X. Everyone thinks it's a waste of money. Everyone thinks it's an attack on the poorest. We know the poorest don't have a car. They live in the areas of the worst air quality. They are paying the most for the increase in food and increase in energy. They have the least well-insulated homes. We know the poorest are suffering, but that is not what people in their bubbles see. So if they've got a space, they can go and have a conversation and ask the questions and see something, even if they don't go in where they see their neighbours are doing something on it. We can normalise it, and we can sort of get around the sort of real toxic impact of corporate-owned press and media and corporate-owned social media and the toxification of this really urgent issue. So we're reframing it, really making it accessible, changing the language you're using, addressing real urgent community needs and mainstreaming the conversation. And it's all about peer-to-peer skills sharing, story sharing, and things run by the community for the community. Addressing people's actual concerns. We listen, we actually care. That's why we're giving up our time. And you know, a lot of the events and the services, well, all the events and services we put on are put on because people have asked for them. And then we always say to people, yes, a cycle repair cafe once a month would be brilliant. Will you help run it? Because we can't do everything. We need to bring more and more people in. If they're passionate about something, we try and empower them to do it with our help. And then we can answer questions and we can clarify new policy, funding, infrastructure, technology in a way that government, quite frankly, can't on its own and simply isn't trusted. And also people can have one of those one-to-one conversations, even if it's a net zero skeptic view, even if it's an anti-ULIS view, as long as they're respectful, we can have a chat with them and we try and highlight what the day-to-day benefits are for them and their family. It's very much about people, their families, their communities. It's not framed as England, it's not framed as the planet, it's framed as here where you are in your home, in your community. And the impact has been stronger and growing engagement, increased awareness, driving low carbon behaviours, really helping people with a real myriad of issues from the poly crisis and the pressures on public services, which are all contributing to the government missions around net zero and all of our goals, right, around, you know, the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis. Here's some really cool stats from the research we did with CAST last year in Bath University. From the people that we spoke to, 46% of our users had reduced their energy use, 66% had reduced the stuff they bought. And for me, the bits that are easy is the waste reduction. The thing that's hard is the waste reduction around energy and around transport. So those figures, even though they're lower, they're really exciting for me, but it's all exciting. Waste reduction is exciting and it's often a route to get people into other things. People come in for recycling, then they'll do repair, then they'll look at their energy. It just, that seems to be the way it works. Or they'll come in for loneliness and then they'll start learning to repair or starting to crochet or starting to work in the community like my garden. Then they'll think about transport. Then they'll think about energy. It all flows. And then impacting green behaviours. So you can see again from that research, yes, having a massive impact at home, having an impact when shopping. But what was more exciting for me was seeing that it was having an impact in their local communities. So they were raising these issues, these sustainable behaviours and changes in their residents associations, in their PTAs, with their councillors, with their MPs, with their places of work. And that is really interesting and really inspiring to see and exciting to see. So obviously what we're doing in all of our projects, we're helping create more thriving spaces, spaces where people find it more natural and more easy to get involved in community action and to collaborate with others and to share skills and knowledge and feel empowered to take action on the things that they feel worried about. And over the last 3 years, we've seen an increase in diversity, strengthened collaborations, diversified funding streams, and we have now just secured some key funding for our blueprinting of the model from Esme Fairbairn, as I mentioned. So the opportunities that I'm here to quickly touch on, yes, I've got 4 minutes, are basically, first of all, as I've mentioned, we are working on creating a community hub blueprinting package. And the idea is that that package will be ready in, let's say, well, the whole thing complete as is, though it will constantly evolve, I'm sure, will be ready in about, let's say, 18 months, 2 years. But in the meantime, there will be bits ready earlier than that. But the point is that people can either take that package and set up their own community hub, franchise style, for free, obviously, but franchise style, or, which I think probably 80%, 70% of the usage will be, they can use that blueprints package to cherry pick the bits that will strengthen elements of their existing work or project. So it might be the fact that, for example, with diversification of funding streams, we've been testing things like doing specific different interesting kinds of events, doing some paid for workshops, doing some work with corporates, doing corporate volunteering, doing paid for talks, providing some services that are reasonably easy to do, but also collaborating with councils, collaborating on social value with contractors to government, NHS and councils, all sorts of different things we've been testing, selling things in our community hub, making things, putting on events, and we can share what we've learned from that, and also some of the templates of doing some of those things. That's just an example. You know, other examples include around what we've done around diversifying who's coming in and who's using the services and what they're getting out of it, or our volunteers, etc. Could be around how we've negotiated our lease, or how we've got 0% miles rates, all sorts of things. So there's that blueprint package. And at the end, I'm going to show you a QR code, and my email address will be there. But the QR code should work great if you can use that. So you can sign up to the expression of interest and say, yes, I'd like to hear when the blueprints package is ready, and, you know, get access to it for free. The second thing is that part of what ESME have funded us for is to help identify some other groups who might want to set up their own community hub when the package is open. And so it might be that someone wants to set up a community hub and their mainstream setting is their town hall in the Shetland Islands village that they are, or it might be in Birmingham's Bullring, or whatever it is. It might be that they want to do it 1 day a week or 7 days a week, but they want to set up a community hub or similar, basically a permanent space in the heart of their community. And what that funding has given us is some time to give people one-to-one sessions to explore where they are on that journey.
Please be aware, we are not able to advise on functionality within my self-service, such as overtime claims, casual hours claims.
I don't know if it's worth somebody putting their thing on.
I've just muted them. Sorry, please.
Okay, no, that's fine. So yeah, so basically we've got some funding, and again, there's going to be the QR code. And if that doesn't work for you, just take my email, where people can say, yes, I'd like to have one of those one-to-one sessions. So we'll probably have one-to-one sessions with, say, 100 groups, 45 minutes, an hour, talking through where they are on their journey, what they'd like to do in terms of permanent space. Have they been together for X amount of time? Have they put on some public events? You know, what are they thinking of in terms of space, or who are their partners in terms of developers and councils, etc., etc. And we'll give them some initial advice. Then we'll get that down to 20 groups, which we'll give more time and advice to. And then we'll finally get that down to about 4 groups, which we'll give a lot more support to, including sort of carbon literacy training for their staff and volunteers, helping them work out the structure of who they need to cover what roles, you know, what funders they might start talking to, what impact data they might need from us to help them, all sorts of different things kind of thing. But to get them to a point that when that blueprints package is ready, they're kind of ready to be putting in funding bids, etc., and or setting up and getting going on their community hub. So it doesn't matter if you just want to kind of understand how far are we from having a permanent space, and what are the key things we want to think about getting into place in the next 1 to 5 years. You could be having that conversation with us, or you could be like, actually, we were thinking about setting up this permanent space next year or the year after. So we're, you know, it doesn't matter where you are on that journey. So those exploratory sessions, as long as you've been going for at least a year, as long as there's at least a couple of you who are spearheading it, not just one person on their own, because it's impossible with just one person on their own really to move it forward. But, you know, you can try, and it is worth trying, but like an actual space that is regular, reliable, is very difficult with just one person leading something. You ideally want to have a few people from your community who are willing to push it forward, and ideally you've done a few public events already, even if it's just 2 or 3 where you've worked with the public on something. So at least been set up for a year, at least have 2 or 3 people who are driving it forward, and at least have done 2 or 3 public events, then I think that exploratory session is definitely worth having. And you can just put down, you can sign up for the sessions, which will be happening in the new year, through the EOI form, and there's going to be a QR code at the end. And then finally, there's an opportunity to find out more about another thing that we've had funded, which is a community sustainability support network for England, which is basically, hopefully, got some information here. So the aim is that whatever you're doing, it shares, whoa, sorry, the formatting's gone crazy, but it shares challenges and it shares opportunities with many other people, even if they're doing something completely different around sustainability. And so if we can all come together once a month, and not necessarily everybody joining, but people can come, have a success story, have a member present a challenge that they're facing, so that we can all support them and discuss and feed into signpost funding or signpost solutions or our experiences as founders, as CEOs, as project leads, then we can support each other. And most importantly, behind the scenes, there's a space for us to share with each other our written case studies, our video case studies, our templates, from everything to how to deliver a repair cafe with teenagers, to how to do that assembly on wildlife preservation, to how to do a talk to residents associations about energy, to how to induct your volunteers, how to train your staff, how to get 0 rates, how to negotiate your lease, every element of any kind of project that you're doing, you know, how to engage, I don't know, 19 to 25-year-olds with employability and nature, whatever you're doing. If you've got some templates, if you've got some forms that people can use, if you've got a lesson plan, all of those things means that people aren't starting from scratch. And so this network is going to be able to be a space where all members for free can not only have that monthly session where it's a community of practice, they're learning from each other, and they can also signpost opportunities for funding, opportunities to collaborate on funding bids, opportunities to get involved in research, in networking events, in training. Not only can they have that community of practice and that sort of peer-to-peer support network, but they can also have access at any time to that resource space where they can access, oh, look, Transition Towns Handbook is going to be in there, and, you know, Repair Cafes forms are going to be in there, but also, I don't know, in Deptford, they did a repair cafe which was aimed solely at deaf-blind people, and they've got a form in there that those people can use. Or somebody else has done a project with teenagers and sewing, and they've got a lesson plan in there that you can use. So it's everything rather than just siloed into, no, because you're not part of that network, you don't get access. The idea is everyone can share what they're doing, any impact data, etc. So that's very exciting. And again, on the QR code that I'm going to share, you can sign up to either become a member or to find out about when it launches. And the other thing that we've learned is the importance of research and impact data. And so we're going to be only collecting information on the benefits of what we're all doing, so that we can all use that data to then bid for funding to do more of what we're doing. But also we're going to try and have an event once a year where we can invite the members in for free, pay for their transport and their lunch, so that we can share some success stories, but also share the challenges that we're having and the opportunities that there are, that we feel that local government, national government, or philanthropic funders could help us with. And we would be doing that with a formal research partner, so that that can be put into a policymaker's feedback report and a funder's feedback report, anonymously, obviously, but so that that information can be going to the right hands, so that when policy is made or strategy is decided upon, it can be really informed by grassroots experiences. And the idea is that this is not a greener and cleaner network. This is a network for England, for the region of England, because in Ireland, Northern Ireland and Scotland, there are networks of this description. And if you're not sure about it, you can email me and I'll tell you who they are. But in the region of England, there is no such network like this. And so the idea is that we have found funding so that we can try and pilot it and then hand it over to government to run, so that as those other regional governments have funded it for their areas, because we're providing the impact data and we're feeding in on policy to policymakers with the feedback, we can encourage the UK government to fund it for the region of England after 2 years. So that's very exciting. So whether you're interested in advice on community sustainability hubs or elements of it, those one-to-ones, whether you're interested in the community hubs blueprinting package that will become available, or whether you're interested in the community sustainability support network for England, which will also be having bits of our templates put into it before that 18 months, 2 years is up and the whole package is ready. Bits will be going in from us and from every other member. Whether you're interested in any of those things, or just feeding into the feedback that we're going to be giving to funders and policymakers in an anonymous way, all those opportunities, please use this QR code with your phones and fill in our expression of interest form and tick what things you're interested in. And we will come back to you and make sure that you get access to those things. And the wonderful thing is we had the time and the resource to apply for the funding to do these things. And the reason that we've done that is so that we're all working so hard that we can all support each other as much as possible. So that's it. And my email address is there, my telephone number's there. I'm very open to talking to people who want more information. So do we have any questions?
Thank you so much, Parisa. That was really, really amazing. So much helpful data and ideas and initiatives. And so the biggest question is whether this will be recorded and we'll have access to the slides and stuff afterwards. So yes, we'll share those probably next week. Do put any questions in the chat. We've got about 7 minutes. I want to come back to a question from Tony earlier on, which was Parisa, what were the most important partnerships that have been made along the way? So for others looking to emulate this. And then Alice, we'll come to you. You've got your hand up.
Cool. So partnerships wise, what's interesting is when we started off, obviously I didn't have any idea really. I was just trying my best. My background wasn't in philanthropy. It wasn't in community work. I started off in human rights lawyer as a lawyer at 18 because of my Iranian heritage. And I feel like this is coming back to it after 20 years of being in law. But I think for me, initially, I was like, oh, we're going to have to partner with the council and schools. And yes, it was great to work with schools and the council. In the first year while we were meeting with other pub, we did the first ever climate hustings for the borough. We did the first ever South East London schools event where 40 schools came together and shared their learnings around what they'd done on sustainability practically to each other, 5 minutes each. And we did one other thing. We raised 50 grand for a local school which had real air pollution issues to put in air purifiers, green screens, and to campaign for a crossing, which they got. And I think schools are important, and I think the council is important. And in the council, I was worried that because it was the ideology of the council and the MPs locally was very much not on this same wavelength, that would be a huge problem. But actually, we built up a relationship with the council officers. So I think that's a really good, in terms of if you want to drive change locally, building up a relationship with the council officers, not just in the carbon management team, also in the waste team, also in the highways team, that's really important. Yes, brilliant if you can have a good relationship with the councillors and the leader of the council, even better. But having a relationship with council officers is really key. I think another thing, yes, great having relationships with schools, but there are also, I feel like, lots of charities and projects aimed at schools, especially primary schools. So I think having a bit more of a focus on secondaries is really important, and also that age group of 19 to 25-year-olds. So I think the other thing is relationships with community groups and community stakeholders that particularly represent more marginalised communities. So I'm talking about, the charity that works with families with autism, the food banks, the churches and the different groups that work with elderly and lonely people, those dealing with isolation, the charities that work with young people and older people dealing with mental health, the charities that support men and talking and loneliness, all these, there's so many different charities and community groups. But I think what I've learned is actually that relationship is really, really important in terms of making sure that what you are creating, whether it is simply one focus of a repair cafe once a month, or whether it is something that is 365 days a week. It's really important, if you want it to reach as many people as possible and benefit those who really need it, is to talk to and listen to the people who are both leading those community groups and charities at grassroots level, and also their beneficiaries, and hear what their pressing needs are and hear what their concerns are, not just around the environment, but around everything else, and how the best way is to communicate with them, and then lean into that when you're designing what you're doing, and when you're telling people about what you're doing, and when you're offering opportunities to volunteer or to collaborate on events, and collaborating on events, sometimes specifically for those groups, and sometimes collaborating on events which are actually opening those groups up to other people finding out about them. We've got a mix between projects in the groups that are more sort of focused on helping specific groups, and other things which are really trying to highlight the value of bringing together people who are dealing with loneliness, with people who are dealing with disabilities, with people who are dealing with neurodiversity, and that ability to help each other and to make people feel empowered despite their own vulnerability, that they can help someone else. So I'd say one of the key ones has been that. So yes, council, brilliant. If you can do it, fantastic. I think that can potentially help with a lot of things, because there's Section 106 funding potentially you could try and go for. There's carbon reduction funding potentially you could go for. There's waste reduction funding you could potentially go for, and collaborate on delivery. And if they can comms what you're doing, fantastic. Definitely schools, and definitely local community groups and organisations, allotments. Find where you're aligned and see where you can work together, and also bring them into the conversation when there are public consultations, and help them see the value of making their voices heard on those things that relate to air quality, green spaces, etc., which may not be always on their radar. Sorry.
It's a very thorough answer. Alice, you've got your hand up. I just want to say, I know we've got a couple of minutes. Oh, sorry, a couple of minutes left. I will share any unanswered questions with Parisa, and Parisa, if you're happy, you could answer them over email, and we can put that in with the recording that goes out maybe next week. That can be, because there's a lot of questions. Alice, sorry, over to you.
Sorry, I mean, I'm happy to just put it in the chat if that's easy. I'm happy.
Don't worry, no,
going over. Okay, I'll go for it. Parisa, you mentioned, I mean, all of this resonates so much with the work that we're trying to do here at Westminster. So thanks so much for your presentation. It was great. One of the key things that we've had from community partners, so sorry, I work at Westminster Council, but one of the key things that we've had from community partners themselves is that they don't necessarily feel equipped or confident to speak with their communities about the range of environmental topics. They, again, like as you mentioned, might have expertise in waste, but not necessarily in energy, etc. So we've done a lot of work to co-create some messages with community leaders that speaks about sustainability without speaking about the complexity of net zero, etc. And we've been delivering a series of capacity building sessions with community leaders to upskill them on how they can have these conversations in practice. But I was just interested from your perspective, like you mentioned how important it is to get trusted messengers on side with this work. I didn't know what your approach to like streamlining kind of how you speak about climate was through your work. I think, because there's obviously so much misinformation, and then it leaves people feeling really like inequipped to take action or really confused and deflated. Yeah, sorry.
Well, I think that sounds amazing, Alice, and I'd really love to see those resources. And also, it's the sort of thing that while councils aren't really supposed to be part of the network's supposed to be really more for the grassroots organisations delivering, so they feel comfortable being open. What I probably would later on down the line ask is whether any of those resources can be made available to the network so that anyone can use them. But what we did do was design carbon literacy training so that any of our staff or volunteers, so we designed it with the Carbon Literacy Trust aimed at volunteers and staff being able to have a basic grounding and 360 kind of understanding of sustainability. And then what tends to happen is then if people want more detail on one thing or another, then they'll say, oh, maybe you could come back to on this day when our energy person is in or energy clinic is on, or you could talk to this organisation or that organisation. So people are getting better at signposting either colleagues who are more expert or offerings or other external experts for areas that they don't have. But I think carbon literacy training does give them the confidence to have those initial conversations.
Okay, interesting.
And we can share that as well if it's useful, like what we've designed is specifically for these sorts of spaces and these sorts of projects, and it's
that
more
would be
based on local. Go on.
That would be really helpful. Is that the one that Carbon Literacy Training have just launched, which is for community groups? Is that the one that you've used, or is it something separate?
No, we designed something with them 3 years ago. So
cool. Okay.
Have a look at it, but also what we've designed is for people who are volunteers in this sort of community hub, sustainability sort of hub space sort of thing. So, but I mean, it could be either of them. I haven't seen the new one, but
that's okay. Yeah. No, it's a really good point. Thank you so much. I'll be interested in looking into that further.
No worries. And also what we have done is some projects where we've worked with specific community groups representing marginalised, or charities representing marginalised communities. And part of that has not only been to co-design a specific kind of workshop for them and their beneficiaries that they can then deliver, but also to talk through with them at a more senior leadership level what they can do as an organisation around their sustainability and how they can talk to their staff and their beneficiaries around sustainability. So yeah, so those are the two sort of routes that we've taken. But what you're doing sounds really interesting. So
amazing.
Ooh, yes.
That was more for like just everyone else's awareness, the link in the chat, but I'm going to reach out to you separately because I want to copy everything you've done. Thanks.
Excellent. Wow, so many amazing questions.
So I've noticed people start dropping off. We'll take one final one. Please, do you have a preference if you can see the chat?
No, please.
Chris put a few questions, so we'll go with him. His most recent question was about what you think are the key skills for those lending on setting up a hub. So what are the key skills?
That's a really interesting question. I think ideally in your core team of people driving it forward, you need people who are really dedicated to making it work. If you were going to set up a hub like ours, in any way, shape or form, the key of it is like that it's really like reliable and regular. And so you kind of need to have someone who is either a volunteer and absolutely going to be opening at 10 and closing at 6 on that day every week, or you need to have a paid member of staff. You also ideally need someone who is going to be responsible for the well-being of your volunteers and trying to recruit those volunteers and going out widely into the community. And ideally, you also need somebody who's going to lead on not necessarily delivering all of the activities, but helping organise them and finding other people in the community who are willing to share and helping organise, make sure that they're there on time, delivering kind of thing. And then finally, because I don't have that head, like for me, it was really important to have someone in the team that had a head for figures, who had sort of a finance or accounting background. And so that when we applied for funding, I knew, you know, as an ex-lawyer, I'm always very worried about risk and doing everything properly. So I wanted to make sure there was someone really professional who was using their professional skills in that capacity. So I think you all have to be really passionate about it. You all have to feel you're in it together. But having those different areas of focus, somebody who's going to open up, somebody who's going to make sure the volunteers are looked after and are there and are approached, somebody who's going to be looking after the events, and ideally somebody who's going to, you know, that person may also be the person who's promoting those events on socials or holding on to looking after the volunteers who are doing that. And then finally the finance side of it. I think those are really important areas, because finance also will lead into all of you working with finance to try and bid for some funding here and there as well, or the different ways that you would bring money in to help fund bits of it. So I hope that's helpful. Possibly.
Thank you so much, Parisa. So it's been a really quick hour. I hope everybody has found that useful. Incredibly amazing work done by Greener and Cleaner and Parisa and the team. We will share the recording and the slides with that QR code, and I just scanned it on my phone whilst it was still up, and it's really helpful to register interest and learn more. But also the Greener and Cleaner website is amazing as well. They've got lots of great videos on there, and I think a final recommendation and tip is just seeing the power of what photography and videos, even if it's just done by yourself, can do. It's so amazing to see how well Green and Cleaner stuff is communicated, because it's kind of short, quick photos or videos. So that's a great bit of learning as well. But thank you so much, Parisa.
Videos and photos.
Thank you so much. And any final questions, if you wanted to put them in the chat will be available still, so I can share that with Parisa afterwards, and we can answer any of the bits that will come out next week. But thank you very much, everyone, for joining, and thanks very much, Parisa and Femi, again.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys. Thanks. And thanks for all you're doing, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Yeah, bye.